I made a script following the exact same structure and style for the Bumpy Johnson story. Mayor deployed National Guard against Harlem. Bumpy Johnson halted them with one call. Script: August 1st, 1943, 7:47 p.m. The Braddock Hotel. The gunshot echoed through the lobby. Robert Bandy hit the floor, blood spreading across his army uniform. The same uniform he'd worn fighting Nazis in Europe. The same uniform that was supposed to mean something, that was supposed to protect him. It didn't. Officer James Collins stood over him, gun still drawn, radio already calling for backup, already constructing the lie. Suspect attacked officer, shots fired in self-defense. Except there were witnesses, dozens of them, hotel guests, staff, people who saw what really happened. A white cop grabbed a black woman too rough, twisted her arm, made her scream. A black soldier stepped in to help, said, "Sir, you're hurting her," and the cop shot him for it. By 8 p.m., word had spread through Harlem like wildfire. They shot a soldier. They shot one of our boys. By 9 p.m., 500 people surrounded the Braddock Hotel. By 10 p.m., it was 10,000, and the neighborhood was burning. Store windows shattered, police cars overturned, fires on every block. The NYPD formed riot lines, but they were outnumbered 50-1. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia sat in his office, phone pressed to his ear. Police commissioner shouting on the other end. "We've lost control. I need the National Guard, now." LaGuardia gave the order. 90 minutes to mobilize. Troops, tanks, the full weight of government force rolling into Harlem to crush a community already on its knees. Everyone expected the same ending. Mass arrests, martial law, blood on the streets. Another excuse to break Harlem's spirit. But at 11:15 p.m., one man stepped onto 125th Street with a bullhorn. Bumpy Johnson. And what he did next stopped the riot cold. No police, no politicians, no violence. Just one voice that 10,000 people trusted more than any badge, any mayor, any government that had ever promised to protect them and failed. And when the streets went quiet, when the fires died down, when the National Guard rolled into an empty battlefield, Bumpy made one phone call to the mayor himself. And what he demanded on that call forced LaGuardia to do something that changed NYPD history forever. To understand this moment, you need to understand what Harlem was living through in 1943. World War II. Black men being drafted to fight for American freedom overseas while being denied that same freedom at home. Segregated units, discriminatory treatment. Black soldiers sleeping in separate barracks, eating in separate mess halls, dying in separate graves. And when they came home on leave, wearing their uniforms with pride, they were still called boy by white cops, still denied service at white restaurants, still beaten for looking white women in the eye, still treated like they didn't belong in their own country. Harlem was a pressure cooker. Overcrowded, underfunded, over-policed by an NYPD that saw black neighborhoods as enemy territory, not communities to protect. Cops didn't patrol Harlem, they occupied it. The violence was constant, not gang violence, police violence. Beatings that never made the papers, arrests without cause, harassment that never stopped. Store owners shaken down for protection money by the very officers supposed to protect them. And nobody in power cared. Not the mayor, not the police commissioner, not the district attorney who looked the other way every time a black citizen showed up with bruises and a story about Officer so-and-so.
But one man saw all of it. Bumpy Johnson. The legend of Bumpy Johnson. By 1943, Bumpy was 36 years old and already a legend in Harlem. Born Ellsworth Raymond Johnson in Charleston, South Carolina in 1905. Moved to Harlem in 1919 during the migration. 14 years old, looking for opportunity. Found chaos instead. Harlem in the 1920s was controlled by white gangsters, Dutch Schultz, Lucky Luciano. They ran the numbers rackets, the gambling dens, the protection schemes. Took money from black neighborhoods, but gave nothing back. Bumpy watched, learned, survived. By the 1930s, he was working for Stephanie St. Clair, the queen of numbers. She taught him the game, taught him that real power doesn't come from violence. It comes from respect. From being the person the community trusts when nobody else cares. When Dutch Schultz tried to take over Harlem's numbers game, Bumpy went to war. Not just a street war, a war of loyalty, of proving to Harlem that he would fight for them, while white gangsters only fought for profit. He won. By 1943, Bumpy Johnson was the unofficial mayor of Harlem. When he walked down Lenox Avenue, people nodded. Not out of fear, out of respect. Because Bumpy protected the neighborhood. When cops shook down black businesses, Bumpy made it stop. When slumlords tried to evict families, Bumpy made them pay. When white gangsters tried to move into Harlem, Bumpy pushed back. He was a criminal, that's true. Ran numbers, ran gambling operations, did things that broke the law. But he also fed families during the Depression, paid rent for widows, made sure black businesses had protection from both white criminals and white cops. Harlem knew who really looked out for them. And it wasn't City Hall.
It was Bumpy. August 1st, 1943. The shooting. 7:30 p.m. The Braddock Hotel on 126th Street. Margie Polite, a black woman, was arguing with the hotel manager. He'd overcharged her. She knew it, he knew it. She demanded her money back. The manager called the police. Officer James Collins arrived 7 minutes later. Didn't ask questions, didn't investigate. Just grabbed Margie by the arm, twisted it behind her back, started dragging her toward the door. "You're hurting me," Margie screamed. Collins didn't care. Robert Bandy stood in the lobby, 26 years old, home on leave from the army, wearing his uniform, proud of it, proud of serving his country, even though his country treated him like a second-class citizen. He couldn't watch a woman being brutalized by the people sworn to protect her. "Sir," Robert said, calm, respectful, "you're hurting her." Collins turned, saw the uniform, didn't care. "Mind your business, boy." "I'm not a boy," Robert said. "I'm a soldier." What happened next, witnesses gave different accounts, but the result was the same. Officer Collins drew his weapon and shot Robert Bandy in the shoulder. Point-blank range, in a hotel lobby, in front of dozens of witnesses. Robert collapsed, blood spreading across his army jacket. Collins radioed for backup, claimed Bandy had attacked him. A lie. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The riot begins. 8 p.m. Word spread through Harlem like wildfire. They shot a soldier. They shot one of our boys, in uniform, for helping a woman. Within 20 minutes, a crowd gathered outside the Braddock Hotel. 50 people, then 100, then 500. By 9 p.m., the mob was moving, and the mob was moving. What started at the Braddock spread through Harlem like a wave. Years of rage, years of humiliation, years of injustice, all of it erupted at once.
Store windows shattered. Not black-owned businesses. Those were left untouched, protected even. But white-owned stores? The ones that charged Harlem residents double what they charged white customers? The ones who wouldn't hire black workers? The ones whose owners called the police on black shoppers for existing? Those burned. Police cars were overturned. Officers who ventured into the streets were pelted with bricks, bottles, anything people could throw. The NYPD tried to form lines, push the crowds back, but they were outnumbered 50-1. By 10 p.m., the police commissioner called the mayor. "We've lost control." The mayor's decision. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia sat in his office, progressive by reputation, reformer, the little flower who promised to clean up corruption and bring fairness to New York. But now he faced a choice: send in more police with orders to crack skulls or call the National Guard. Either way, people were going to die. He chose the Guard, gave them 90 minutes to mobilize, troops from Fort Hamilton, armed, ready to occupy Harlem like enemy territory. But here's what the mayor didn't understand. Harlem wasn't rioting because they were criminals. They were rioting because they were tired. Tired of being shot, tired of being ignored, tired of watching their sons go to war for a country that treated them like the enemy. Tired of being told to be peaceful while being brutalized. The violence wasn't criminal, it was pain. Pain expressing itself the only way it knew how. And into this chaos walked the one man who understood that. Bumpy steps in. 11:25 p.m. Bumpy Johnson stepped out of Small's Paradise, his headquarters on 135th Street. The streets were full of smoke, fire, noise, people running in every direction, sirens wailing. This wasn't organized, this was chaos, and chaos would give the mayor exactly the excuse he needed to crush Harlem. Bumpy's lieutenants surrounded him. "Boss, we need to get you out of here. The guard's coming." Bumpy looked at the burning streets, looked at his people destroying their own neighborhood, looked at the police in riot gear 3 blocks away, waiting for an excuse to shoot. He made a decision. "Get me a bullhorn." "What?" "Get me a bullhorn and a car, now." 5 minutes later, Bumpy was standing on the hood of a Cadillac in the middle of 125th Street and Lenox Avenue, the heart of Harlem, the epicenter of the chaos. His driver leaned on the horn, long, sustained blast. People turned, saw who it was. Slowly, the noise started to die down. Bumpy raised the bullhorn. "Listen to me." His voice cut through everything, strong, calm, commanding.
The speech that stopped everything. The crowd quieted. Not completely. Fires were still burning. Glass was still breaking in the distance. But the people near him stopped, turned, listened. "I know why you're angry," Bumpy said. "I'm angry too." Pause. "They shot Robert Bandy for doing what any man would do, protecting a woman. And that cop will probably get a medal while Robert's in the hospital fighting for his life." Voices in the crowd. Agreement. Rage. "I know," Bumpy continued. "I know." He let that sink in. "But look around you. Look at what you're burning." He gestured at the fires, the broken windows, the destroyed stores. "Whose stores are these? Whose homes? Yours." Pause. "You're burning your neighborhood, and tomorrow morning when the smoke clears, who's going to pay to rebuild? Not the NYPD, not City Hall, you." A voice shouted from the crowd. "They deserve it. They shot one of us." Bumpy nodded. "You're right. They do deserve it." He let that sit for a moment. "But here's what they want. They want you to burn your own neighborhood, so tomorrow they can roll tanks down these streets and say, 'See, they're animals. They need to be controlled.'" He pointed at the police line 3 blocks away. Officers in riot gear, waiting. "You see those cops?
They're waiting for you to throw one more brick, burn one more store, because when you do, they get to shoot. Pause. And when the bodies pile up, they'll blame you, not the cop who shot Robert, you. The crowd was listening now, really listening. So here's what we're gonna do, Bumpy said, his voice firm, final. You're gonna go home. You're gonna check on your families. You're gonna let me handle this. Someone shouted, "What are you gonna do?" Bumpy smiled, cold, dangerous. "I'm gonna call the mayor, and I'm gonna tell him that if the cops who caused this aren't gone by tomorrow, next time I won't stop the riot." Pause. I'll lead it. The streets go silent. 11:52 p.m. The streets were clearing, not because the police ordered it, because Bumpy Johnson did. People were going home. Fires were being put out. Store owners were sweeping glass. The rage was still there, but it was controlled now, directed. By the time the National Guard rolled into Harlem at midnight, there was nothing to suppress. The riot was over. The guard commander radioed the mayor. "Sir, the situation is contained. We don't understand it, but the streets are empty." Mayor LaGuardia sat in his office, confused, relieved, but mostly confused. How did this happen? How did 10,000 people just stop? His phone rang. His secretary's voice came through the intercom. "Mayor, you have a call. Says his name is Bumpy Johnson." LaGuardia hesitated. He knew the name. Every politician in New York knew the name. Bumpy Johnson, numbers runner, gangster, the man who ran Harlem's underworld. But Bumpy Johnson didn't call mayors. Mayors pretend men like Bumpy didn't exist. LaGuardia picked up the phone. "Put him through." The phone call. Bumpy's voice came through the line, calm, almost friendly. "Mr. Mayor, this is Bumpy Johnson. We haven't been formally introduced, but I think you know who I am." LaGuardia's jaw tightened. "Mr. Johnson, I'm aware of your reputation." "Good." Bumpy's voice was smooth. "Then you know I just did your job for you." Silence. "I stopped a riot your police couldn't handle. 10,000 people were in those streets, and I sent them home." Pause. "You're welcome." LaGuardia bristled. "I don't recall asking for your help." "You didn't have to," Bumpy said. "See, unlike you, I actually live in Harlem. These are my people, and I'm not going to let them destroy themselves because your cops don't know how to act civilized." LaGuardia cleared his throat. "Officer Collins has been suspended pending investigation." "Suspended?" Bumpy's voice went cold. "That's not going to cut it." "Excuse me? Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Mayor." Bumpy's tone shifted. "No more pleasantries. Pure business now. Officer Collins, gone, not suspended, fired. And every other officer in that precinct who's beaten a black citizen without cause. I have names, 8 of them. They're gone too." LaGuardia felt his flush. "You can't demand." "I'm not demanding. I'm informing." Pause. "Because here's the deal. I stopped this riot, but next time some cop puts his hands on one of my people, I won't stop it."
Silence. "I'll arm it." LaGuardia felt a chill run down his spine. "You think tonight was bad?" Bumpy continued. "Tonight was me showing restraint. Tonight was me protecting your city from itself. Next time, I won't be so generous." "You can't threaten the mayor of New York City," LaGuardia said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bumpy laughed, not cruel, almost amused. "I'm not threatening you, Mr. Mayor. I'm offering you a solution. You want peace in Harlem? You want your police to be able to patrol without getting bricks thrown at them? Then you clean house. You get rid of the cops who think their badge gives them the right to beat black people. You do that, and I guarantee you won't have another riot." Pause. "And if I don't?" LaGuardia asked. "Then next time I won't make a phone call." Bumpy's voice was ice. "I'll make a statement.
and you'll have a war on your hands. The mayor's choice. LaGuardia sat in his office, staring at the phone. He knew Bumpy was right. He knew Collins was dirty. He knew at least half the Harlem precinct was corrupt. Officers who beat black citizens for sport, who shook down businesses, who treated their badge like a license to terrorize. But firing cops, especially white cops, at the demand of a black gangster, that would be political suicide. But so would another riot. "I'll look into it," LaGuardia said finally. "You've got 72 hours, Mr. Mayor." Bumpy's voice was final. "After that, I can't control what happens." The line went dead. August 4th, 1943. 3 days later. The New York Times ran a small story on page 7. 8 NYPD officers dismissed following internal review. No details, no names, just gone. Officer James Collins was fired and charged with assault. The charges were later dropped. Politics, connections, the usual corruption, but he never wore a badge again. The people of Harlem knew who was responsible. Not the mayor, not the police commissioner, not the district attorney. Bumpy Johnson. Word spread through the neighborhood, in barbershops, in churches, on street corners. Bumpy made the mayor fire those cops. Bumpy stopped the riot. Bumpy protected us when nobody else would. His legend grew, not because of violence, because of power, real power. The power to make the most powerful white man in New York answer for the violence his police caused. The legacy. Mayor LaGuardia never publicly acknowledged the phone call, but for the rest of his term, he was careful about Harlem, careful about police conduct, careful about who he put in charge of the precinct, because he understood something that night. Bumpy Johnson had more power in those streets than any politician, and that power didn't come from guns or money or fear. It came from respect, from loyalty, from being the one person who stood between the community and the system trying to crush it. Years later, in 1965, when Malcolm X was assassinated, the NYPD asked Bumpy Johnson to help keep the peace. They didn't call the mayor, they called Bumpy, because they knew who really ran Harlem. The final chapter. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968. Heart attack at Wells Restaurant on Lenox Avenue, surrounded by friends. Died the way he lived, in Harlem, with his people. At his funeral, thousands lined the streets. Not because he was a gangster, because he was a protector. A man who understood that sometimes the only way to stop violence is to have the courage to stand in the middle of it and say enough. A man who proved that real power doesn't come from a badge or an office or a government position. It comes from the people, from earning their trust, from fighting for them when nobody else will, from being willing to stand up to the most powerful men in the city and demand justice. August 1st, 1943. Bumpy Johnson stopped a riot by refusing to let his people destroy themselves. And then he made the most powerful white man in New York answer for the violence his police caused. That's not just power, that's legacy.